most perfect subjugation does not come from a blade pressed against the throat, but from planting an illusory desire within the minds of subordinates. The eminent monarchs of antiquity always understood a cold truth, that coercive force only breeds resistance, while an illusion of glory and wealth can drive tens of thousands of subjects to voluntarily plunge into destitution, all while believing they are treading a path paved with silk. This is no ordinary deception. It is a sophisticated art of manipulation, a stratagem that borrows the very desires of the people to forge the shackles that bind them. Maneuvering troops on a battlefield only decides the victory or defeat of a single engagement, but molding the greed and hope of the masses is the root of sustaining the longevity of a dynasty. In the ancient art of statecraft, whenever the imperial court needed to mobilize vast resources to expand borders or erect monumental structures, they absolutely never issued harsh labor conscription orders at the outset. Compulsory edicts are always accompanied by resentment and the risk of rebellion. Instead, lords and sovereigns would utilize the most effective communication tools, such as rumors, folk poetry, and gilded proclamations. At every crossroads, whispers would begin to circulate about a frontier region in desperate need of people, or a prestigious craft requiring countless talented hands. The court would paint a radiant vision where anyone who ventured forth was promised overflowing stipends, conferred titles, and the opportunity to occupy lofty positions. Scarcity was inflated by the court to an extreme degree, transforming backbreaking toil into a once-in-a-millennium privilege. The perfect trap is never woven from absolute lies. The siren song of power is always built upon half-truths. The superiors will only display the most dazzling facets and keep the darkness behind them tightly concealed. As a tactic to manipulate hope, they skillfully blur the line between possibility and reality, leading the people to falsely believe that a life-changing opportunity is the inevitable outcome for everyone. They will take a few rare individuals who have actually grown wealthy from that work and parade them through the crowds, bestowing upon them silks and jewels to serve as living proof, constructing an illusion of prosperity to mask the exploitative nature within. When the people look upon these examples, their greed and hope ignite fiercely. They believe that glory awaits them just ahead. But the court has deliberately excised the most vital part of the truth, that the number of seats at the summit is always extremely limited, and tens of thousands at the bottom must use their sweat to prop up those few lucky souls. This art of manipulating desire is the foundation for creating absolute obedience, turning tens of thousands of free men into docile working machines. The brilliance of this scheme lies in its exploitation of human vanity. Everyone harbors an implicit belief that they are the exception, that they are wiser and luckier than others. When the dynasty dangles the bait of a noble profession, the people do not see the tens of thousands of others who crave the same thing. They only see their own vision of glory. The thirst to rise above has clouded their capacity for logical judgment. The masses begin to move. Thousands of farmers abandon their fields, and young men forsake their quiet lives to drain their family fortunes, pouring their entire minds into learning the very trade that is currently being idolized. A massive torrent of human capital voluntarily flows into the trap that the court has secretly dug. And when that massive crowd surges toward a single narrow door, the true tragedy begins to reveal itself. The profound purpose of creating artificial scarcity is to produce a calculated surplus. A commodity is only expensive when it is rare. A skilled craftsman can only demand a high wage when the court cannot find a replacement. When tens of thousands possess the same skill, their value in the eyes of the ruler plummets disastrously. At this point, those in power no longer have to bestow the generous rewards promised initially. The people will turn on one another, trampling each other, and automatically devaluing their own labor to snatch up the few remaining positions. They compete to offer their sweat at the cheapest price just to avoid being discarded. The court stands leisurely above, reaping the finest fruits of labor at a pittance. The labor surplus created by the people themselves is the greatest gift to the rulers. The ingenuity of the lords lies not only in exploiting greed, but also in the art of weaponizing the fear of falling behind. When one sees friends and neighbors flocking to a new path, even the most cautious person will feel restless. The court skillfully creates an atmosphere of fervor, making the act of standing on the sidelines a form of psychological torture. The fear of being left behind is the invisible lash that goads even the slowest to plunge into the mire. They no longer act based on their own abilities, but follow a herd mentality. The superior looks down from above at the throng surging through the city gates, knowing full well that when humans are driven by both greed and fear, they will strip themselves of their own capacity for independent thought. Why do the people not recognize the deception and turn back? Because the manipulation has taken root too deeply in their psyche, creating a set of invisible shackles sturdier than iron or steel. When a person has traded all their time, money, and youth to chase a frivolous light, they have tied themselves to a point of no return. Those who were once praised for their courage to venture forth now refuse to acknowledge the cruel truth, for admitting the mistake would collapse their pride. To return to one's home village is to face shame and empty hands. Pride forces them to grit their teeth and endure, resigned to poverty in the very place that was once called a gold mine. They deceive themselves into thinking that with just a little more effort, the opportunity will come. The monarch only needs to sow the seeds of hope, and the people will voluntarily water their own trap with tears and blind persistence. The court also understands that to maintain the power of half-truths, they must command the direction of information. Any rebuttal or cry of lament from those who have failed is either stifled or smeared as the words of the lazy, envious of the success of others. The scholars, who are considered the voice of the people, are in reality merely tools of the court. They are commanded to write essays praising the glory of the new profession, painting a flawless and radiant future. In a world where the only source of information comes from the ruler, the people have no way of seeing the deep pits waiting in the shadows. The blindness of the masses is not innate. It is a product perfectly designed by strategic minds. The ultimate mastery of this power game is the ability to transfer all responsibility. If the court uses lashes to force the people to work, the people will rebel against the king when accidents occur. But if the people voluntarily sell their houses to search for gold because they believed a rumor, then, when they face hunger and thirst, whom can they blame? They can only torment themselves. Systematic exploitation has been transformed into individual inadequacy. Those who end up empty-handed believe they failed because they were not talented or patient enough. Instead of being directed toward the palace, eyes filled with resentment are now cast down in self-deprecation. Supreme power suddenly becomes invisible and stands beyond all judgment, remaining clean and stainless even as tens of thousands suffer beneath its feet. Where do those who cannot survive this cutthroat race go? They become anonymous shadows, erased from the magnificent streets so as not to stain the portrait of prosperity that the court maintains. Their failures are kept hidden in silence, so that successive generations of youth do not see the ruinous path and continue to venture forth. The light only shines on the few successful ones being hailed, creating a harsh law of survival disguised as fairness. The monarchs view the exhaustion of the people not with pity, but with the composure of a carpenter shaving away excess wood to achieve a beautiful statue. To power, the strength of the people is an inexhaustible resource, so long as they still have hope. The gears of this statecraft never stop turning. Its nature is to continuously create new currents to exploit social energy. When a gold mine is depleted, when a profession is overcrowded and its price is dirt cheap, the court will coldly close that door. And the very next day, emissaries will continue to preach about a new land, a newly emerged technology, a place thirsting for talent and promising overflowing riches. A new illusion is erected. The masses, with their short memories and their thirst for a better life, once again wind themselves into the new loop, voluntarily putting their heads into a noose tied with a beautiful silk bow. Looking through this stratagem, one sees a chilling and terrifying wisdom in the ancient art of ruling. The prosperity put on display is not meant to be distributed to the people. It is a sophisticated bait. Hope is not a guiding lamp, but an anesthetic that paralyzes the will to resist. Great rulers do not fear the greed of the people. On the contrary, they shrewdly nurture that greed into a self-operating machine to exhaust labor. They continuously create artificial fevers so that the people will sacrifice unconditionally. Then, nonchalantly, harvest the sweet fruit from those who are jostling in the dark. The wisdom of those in power is not measured by the jewels they possess, but by the art of controlling the desires of the multitude. By manipulating information and concealing the truth under a glamorous facade, the lords have turned society into a chessboard. There, every piece imagines it is moving forward for its own benefit, but in reality, it is serving the glory of the one pulling the strings. When the mist of promises dissipates, the only thing remaining is the exhaustion of those at the bottom and a throne that grows ever higher upon the fragments of faith. In this eternal chess match, can ordinary people ever choose a safe path for themselves? Or has every rose-filled road they eagerly tread been secretly strewn with ashes by those above?